Hey everybody, it's your girl Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of Little Old Glassboro, New Jersey. You know it right here on blacktoughradio.com. How y'all doing? Listen here, listen here, listen here, listen here. I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile with y'all today, okay? Because y'all know we got important things to discuss, people to see, places to go, things to do. So we just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Y'all, listen, there are so many people out here in this whole expatriate, life. And a lot of us are doing business. Praise God, hallelujah. And we got to know how to do it, y'all. And if you like me, I need somebody that knows the international end as well as the US end. So it's a whole thing. And the one thing that you want to definitely make sure that you invest in is making sure that your business and you as a your person is protected from liability, making mistakes. And so when it comes to, shelling out that money for professionals, I just think that your bookkeeper, your CPA, your lawyer, don't mince money on them. Okay. It's like we definitely need to invest in those services, those professional services. Forget what you heard, because a lot of people be talking a whole lot of stuff that they do not know the facts about. So I'm so proud to bring to you today Miss Katrina Haynes, and she is with Haynes Global Tax Experts. Okay, and she helps expatriates like a lot of us. And I saw her on one of the Exodus summits, and I was like, that sister got her stuff together. So I'm extremely happy to be able to bring her on the show today. So y'all just sit tight. I'm gonna turn the floor over to her. Okie dokie. Miss Katrina, thank you for being on the show. Introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Charlotte. Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Haynes, and I am a CPA. I have over 25 years of experience in U.S. expat and foreign national taxation, which is ultimately individual U.S. taxation for those people living overseas and for foreign nationals in the United States.
Wow. So, well, where are you located?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia, hot Atlanta.
Yeah.
So tell me this. First of all, for y'all are hearing this on the radio now. Wait till y'all see the video. Y'all ain't gonna believe this girl got no 25 years experience in nothing. You understand? But check this out. I would like for you to share with us how you got into this business as far as like a CPA, and then to take it even further, this whole international piece. Like, who thinks of that?
So I'll give you the shorter version. So I became a CPA because I wanted to be a writer, and I had a really horrific English experience my junior year, sophomore year in high school. I'd been getting awards for writing up until that point, and then I just ran into a teacher who just really did not like any of my writing, and I decided I wanted to go into a career that was more stable, stable being financial, and I took an accounting course at my high school, and that was it. I decided at that point I wanted to be a CPA.
Wow.
So,
So you
yeah,
actually like the numbers.
I do like the numbers. The numbers make sense. What I thought when I made that decision at 14, 15 years old was, there's always going to be one right answer, and then learned very quickly that that's not the case. But there's kind of a range of right answers from, aggressive to conservative, but there's still there's correct and incorrect. And I like that. I always decided that I could do something like right on the side while I could make a living getting those correct answers. But so that was that's how I decided to
So
become
I mean,
a
I
CPA.
just think that that's very interesting, because on the beginning, or there's a part of you that very artistic, art, that artsy part, that creative part. And then for you to go from the whole creativity of writing to something that, even though there's not, that's a very interesting point that you bring up, that it's not necessarily a just hard line, right or wrong answer. It's much more rigid than being able to just write what you feel. You can't just tell somebody what you want to tell them about the numbers. Do you see those sides marrying at all? Like, as you're doing the accounting, Like, do you get to use your creative side, and how?
I do. It's actually more common than you would think. So I have colleagues that, build computers that, I mean, that's not as artistic, but build tables. I have colleagues who are into interior design, or they'll have fashion lines and make candles. So it's much more common than you would think. Um, I'm not sure. So okay,
You
did
good?
you get all that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not as uncommon as you would think it is. So for me, I marry those two more in just my approach to the topics that I'm presenting. It is very much so more laid back. It is very much so approachable. Even when I'm teaching the courses, I can see that they're getting a very different experience than the people that come before me, especially when I'm doing live speaking in the midst of a bunch of speakers. It's always like a wave of energy that comes in, and then everybody kind of falls back asleep. It's very heavy material, so you
Yes.
can't present it that way because people aren't going to absorb it. It's too much. So and then just bringing my personality into a space that tends to be very black and dark blue is just kind of how I married it to.
I think that's the best thing. My bookkeeper is Hope Brown, Brown
Mm-hmm.
Business Solutions. And one thing that Hope does is, there was this line in Philadelphia. I think it was the movie Philadelphia, where Denzel Washington tells somebody, break it down to me like I'm 6 years old. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about that all the time. And when it
Yeah.
comes to matters such as the matters of taxes and finances and things like that, I think that that ability is good, because and no matter what profession you are, because you're going to have the jargon, you're going to have the very legal terms. I think it's also very important for medical professionals to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, I mean, you're going to have to break down some of that, because
Right.
and to be able to do it where people just feel like it's more conversational, and that you're more approachable, because our finances are very personal,
Right.
very personal. And sometimes looking at those finances is very intimidating.
Yeah. It's like being naked in front of somebody for the most part, when you're talking about things like this. And it's unfortunate, especially in our community, that a lot of times we grow up being taught that you don't tell people outside of your house what's going on in your house. And sometimes you can't get the help that you need because you're so busy trying to be private. That's not what other people do. That's not what rich people do. Everybody knows their business. If you're extremely wealthy, you've got 5, 10 people that know exactly how wealthy you are, exactly where your money moves, exactly what you should be doing, and that's to help maintain your wealth. There's a lot of secrecy and silence in our community, and that's how people don't aren't able to help because we're so busy trying to keep our private business private. So hopefully we don't continue that within the next couple generations.
That part, that part. And you make such a good point, because that is what goes on in the house stays in the house. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be airing your dirty laundry. I mean, how often have we heard that growing up? And at the end of the day, you do need to be cautious sometimes in the things that you share, and try to discern who you share them with. However, you know, you're not going to grow if you don't share. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, if we're not sharing nowadays, we have the internet. We have
Mm-hmm.
so much information at our disposal that, it's not a whole lot of excuse for just showing enough ignorance in things. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays. But you will see some people, even with the company you keep, the company that you keep, a lot of times y'all in the same tax bracket. And if y'all is wheeling and dealing and making money and leaving legacy and leaving, inheritance and stuff like that, that's one thing. But if y'all just kicking the bobo and living from paycheck to paycheck, and that's all you know as an individual, then we're kind of missing out. So,
Yeah.
broadening our horizons, not being afraid to ask those questions is a really good thing. Now, I want to ask you, um, I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal life, your family. I know that you do some volunteering with the Down syndrome. Do you do it with Down syndrome foundations, or do you do it personally? And then we're going to go ahead and hop into the taxes.
So yes, my oldest daughter has Down syndrome, trisomy 21. So there's the volunteering that I do isn't as kind of how it sounds like. It's more just I would say coaching new parents and helping them walk through what they should understand. People with younger children, my daughter just turned 13. So a lot of the initial hardships, I'll say, I don't want to call them hardships because it's just part of being a parent, really. But some of the initial challenges that are different from what you have when you have traditional children, you don't see with children with Down syndrome. So a lot of times people come in and there's a lot of information out there, and it's scary to them. And just walking them through and saying that it's not, don't listen to all of that. It's you're and especially if you don't have any other children, because my oldest has Down syndrome, so I didn't know any different. This is life to me. And then when I started having other children, it was weird that we weren't at the hospital all the time, or it was weird that we weren't at the doctor all the time. And shouldn't we be getting you checked up because your sister has 15 different doctor's appointments, you got 2. Like, this doesn't feel right. We're never at the hospital. You've never been to the hospital overnight. So just kind of that expectation, and then just understanding that their life isn't going to be like your life was, but also looking at other kids. And I think this is just something I saw as I watched her grow up, is you can have a child without a diagnosis that's still going to have some issues, that you're still going to have, challenges, that you're still going to have things that you're going to have to overcome. So, and kind of once you look at it like that, it's just really part of being a parent. There are some more things that are different, just trying to explain to my children, especially my middle daughter, because she is in the middle and she kind of sees herself as the oldest sometimes, and explaining to her that no, this is still your older sister. You can't boss her, you can't run her, she's not going to let you do that, and she's not your responsibility. You are a child, she is a child, I am the mother. You are not responsible for her. Now, when you all go somewhere, I have three daughters. When you all go somewhere, I expect you all to look out for each other, but it's not because of what she can and cannot do. It's more because you all are sisters, and that's what I expect of you as sisters. And just, kind of pulling her back. You don't need to talk for her. You don't need to do for her. You don't need to explain for her. She can talk for herself. She can explain for herself. You're not always going to be there. Let her talk. Nobody's talking to you. Let her talk. I did not, because I'll ask her, I'll ask my oldest a question, and she'll be like, well, she wants it. Was I talking to you? I wasn't talking to you. Let her talk. I'm in that bit of doing for her, because I don't need her to get complacent. She don't need anybody to talk to for her. She doesn't need anybody to express for her, and I've raised her that way. She's extremely independent. I'd say she's my most reasonable child. If she's tired, she goes to bed. I don't worry about her going to bed on time, because if she's tired, she goes to bed. If she gets up when she's supposed to get up, she cleans her room. She'll clean her sister's room if it bothers her, because she don't like a dirty room. So sometimes I'll wake up on Saturday and her other sister's rooms are clean, and I'm like, did you clean their room? Yes, they were dirty. Okay, fine. So she does all the things I would expect her to do as a 13-year-old kid. There's some things that she can't do, but for the most part, I treat her and have the same expectations of her as my other children, more so because she's the oldest. But so I guess that's a long answer to a short question.
I love that answer, because you know why? I'm telling you, I'm so good at this. I'm so good at this.
I love it.
I'm playing. But really, you know what? It tied into what we were just talking about secrecy and the benefit of sharing. And you say, you started your answer off and you were saying that, it's not like, I think what you were saying was that not doing a whole lot, but you are doing a whole lot. Most of us don't have children that have Down syndrome. So, you know what I'm saying? Most of your friends, it's not, we got children that have other kind of stuff in common, but that is a more special, unique thing. So you have those people out there that need you.
Yeah.
They need your voice because they ain't got nobody else around them that
Yeah.
can give them that wisdom, that can share that experience that you have with your children, even with the sibling. I mean, I thought that was very interesting because you think about, okay, so this child has Down syndrome. That's all you think about. Is
Mm-hmm.
that this is what her situation is, but it's a whole nother situation. First of all, you just identified a fully functioning young lady, okay, that got her own opinion and ideas about things, and is going to step up and take care of what she got to take care of, what she feel like it need to be taken care of. A
Yeah.
lot of times, you don't get to hear that represented,
Yeah.
about children that are going through different things, and then how that ties in with the younger siblings, and it's more or less a protective thing, but she has to let her do her because
Mm-hmm.
she got to live in this world, right?
Right.
That was good. That was good right there. Thank you very much for sharing your
Yeah.
story with us. And thank you very much for sharing yourself and your story with other people who have the same type situation. So thank you for doing that. Now that I've been all in your business, let's get to the money.
Yes.
So
It's
I
the money.
think I would just like to give you the floor and let's talk about maybe three things that expats need to know before relocating overseas. Talk to
Yes.
me.
Yes. So these are the if I had to pick three things,
Mm-hmm.
the first and foremost is that as a US citizen or a green card holder, you are subject to tax on your worldwide income, period, full stop, even if you are not living in the United States. You have to file a tax return every single year. All of your assets will be subject to US estate tax. So that is the main thing that gets a lot of people in trouble because they go overseas, they start paying tax overseas, and they feel like they don't have a continuing US filing requirement. If you are a green card holder and your green card expires, you are still subject to tax in the US on your worldwide income. If you are, so just because you cannot use it for immigration purposes, it is still active for tax purposes. It's just like if your passport expires, that doesn't mean you're not a citizen anymore. It just means you need a new passport. You have to surrender your passport or your green card to a U.S. consular officer. You have to receive certification that it has been received. Then and only then does your tax filing requirement stop. Now, if you do that, you are not allowed to enter the United States unless you're coming from a country where we have an agreement. Sometimes you have to get a visa. You don't get any preferential treatment. You got to stand in the same lines with all the other foreign nationals when you do that. Depending on when you decide to come back, the U.S. can deny you entry at the border, especially if you gave up your citizenship. Green card holders can just give up their green card. There's a process they have to go through, but as a U.S. citizen, you have to pay an exit tax, like $2,300. I think it's $2,350. And then on top of that, you have to make sure that all of your tax obligations are up to date. So that's the
Mm.
first big bucket. Second bucket, all of that I just said, add state taxes to it. So depending on what state you leave from, you could continue to have a trailing state liability as well. So if you move to a country like Switzerland, and Switzerland has a cantonal tax, which is like a state tax, you could be paying federal tax on your worldwide income in the U.S. You could be paying state tax in the U.S. also on your worldwide income. You could be paying cantonal tax, federal tax in another country, and then let's say you're in a state like Pennsylvania or Indiana or Ohio where they have local tax, county tax, school tax. You could be paying tax on your income 5, 6 times if you don't break those state tax ties. That also means after you die, you could be subject to a state tax in that state. And I've seen that happen before where you thought you broke state residency and then you try to move assets, whether they be brokerage accounts, financial accounts, physical property, and the state comes in and says, no, you have to deal with the estate tax rules at the state level as well. So don't forget your state tax obligations, depending on the states that you come from. States like, just off the top of my head, Alabama, California, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Georgia, those are states that are harder to break your ties to. So a lot of
Really?
taxpayers, mm-hmm, they'll relocate to a no tax state like a Texas or a Florida before they leave to go overseas because that will prevent that estate tax happen or that a state additional state trailing requirement. And the third thing I want to mention is foreign bank account reporting. The IRS has, well, the U.S. Department of Treasury, which is the parent company to the Internal Revenue Service, has these things with about 116 different countries called intergovernmental agreements. And what an intergovernmental agreement is basically an agreement between that country and the United States, whereby they will report directly back to the IRS every financial transaction that you have in that country. So if you open up a foreign bank account in a country where we have an IGA, they're going to ask for your US passport, they're going to ask for your social security number. That is so they can report that information back to the Internal Revenue Service. If they're not, that financial institution gets hit with massive penalties. So what a lot of US expats are seeing is difficulty opening up financial accounts in certain countries because of those reporting requirements. What that means for us as tax filers is when you get a Form 1099 or a W-2 or any of those forms, those are IRS forms. That means that the IRS gets a copy, the taxpayer gets a copy, and the person issuing the form also gets a copy. So when you file your tax return or you report whatever on your forms, what you're doing is you're confirming information that the IRS already has visibility to. So all those people back in the day that thought that they could file a tax return and they could exclude their transactions in foreign countries, you can't do that anymore because the IRS can see it and they're waiting for you to disclose that information. It's one thing if you get, even if you get a $100,000 gift, the gift tax rules are different when you receive gifts from foreign nationals. Typically, if you get a gift, the person who gives the gift has to pay the tax. But when you're getting a gift from the foreign national and they don't have a filing requirement, I see this a lot with people that are immigrants or their parents were immigrants and they live overseas, they don't have green cards or whatever. They might have come for school, but then your parents decide to give you $200,000 for a house. Typically, the person giving the gift pays the tax. But when the person giving the gift doesn't have a U.S. filing requirement, then the recipient has to pay the tax. And gift tax is 18 to 40%. Okay. So if you don't say, you say, well, I'm not going to report it because they're not going to know. They do know. And now they're waiting on you to report that on the U.S. return. And when you don't, you're walking yourself into an audit.
Isn't there something, did you mention, maybe I missed it, with the with the foreign bank accounts, didn't they start something where you couldn't have, like if you have over $10,000 in your account at any given time, is the 10,000, is that the threshold?
It is. So it's not that you can't have it. You can have it. You just have to disclose it.
Report it.
You just have to disclose it. You don't pay tax when you move money. Because I get this question a lot. What if I move it from this country to this country? IRS don't care. You can move it from the US overseas. You just have to disclose. And it's 10,000 aggregate. So if you have 10 bank accounts with $1,000 in them, you report them all. If you have one bank account with 9,000, you don't have to report it at all. But you have to look at all of the accounts. So it's bank accounts, financial accounts, brokerage accounts, foreign pension, all of those things together. And it's if they hit 10,000 at any point in time. So let's say you move $5,000 from one account to another account during the year, then the maximum value is $10,000 because you had an account with a maximum value of 5,000 and another account with a maximum value of 5,000, even though it was the same 5,000 that you moved back and forth.
Yes.
When you add the maximum values together, if it totals $10,000 or more, you have to report everything. And the reason that is important is because the penalty is up to, this is if it's a non-willful penalty, meaning they think you did it on accident, it's $10,000.
Yes.
Adjusted for inflation, I think it's $28,000. So that's if they think you did it on accident. If they think you did it on purpose, then add to that up to 50% of your bank account and anywhere from a year today in federal prison to 5 years in federal prison if they think you did it on purpose.
Oh, Jesus. So, okay. So when they're talking about that bank account, that federal thing, that's for business accounts and for personal?
That's every account that has your name on it, every account that you have signature authority over. Your grandmother that lives in Grenada has a bank account and you can take money out. That's an account. You're a CFO of a US-based business. Those accounts are all accounts. You have your own LLC with a foreign account. Every account that has your name on it, every account that you have signature authority over. You set up kids accounts for your children in foreign, those accounts, all of those accounts. Even if your kids have bank accounts and their grandmother is from South Africa and puts $10,000 in, your kid has a requirement to file that form as
well. Wow. I actually thought it was, I report money, right?
Yeah.
But I actually thought they really was looking for to have $10,000 in one account. I thought if you didn't, so you said the word aggregate, that means totally combined.
That means totally combined. And again, if you take 5,000 from one account and put 5,000 in another account, even though your net worth in those accounts is 5,000, for FBAR purposes, that's 10,000, and you have to report them.
And it's individual. If you're married, it's individual. Unless you have like joint accounts.
Correct. If you have joint accounts, then typically you report them. It depends. So if I'm married and we have a joint foreign account that takes us over the threshold, but then we both have little accounts, then I can report my individual accounts and our joint accounts, and then he would have to report his individual accounts. He doesn't necessarily have to re-report our joint account because I've reported it and reported his name and social, but I just do it twice. It doesn't hurt anything because there's no tax. It's not a tax form. It's a disclosure form. All you're doing is disclosing to the Internal Revenue Service the existence of the accounts, the maximum values of the accounts. So it doesn't hurt to double report or double disclose because the penalties are crazy if you don't report or disclose at all.
And I didn't even know the rest, or I think you might have mentioned it before and I just forgot. Yeah. But I mean, that right there is enough to make this call just completely worth the time spent listening, because we just don't know. And if you don't consult with professionals, then you just don't know. So these are a lot of like special. And you said another word that I've never heard. Is it a new word or is it just new to me? You said worldwide income.
Oh my God. It's new to you. New to you. Yes, worldwide income.
I've never heard that term. I've heard overseas income. I've heard international income, but I've never heard worldwide income. I mean, that's like break it on down, baby. Like I'm talking everywhere in this whole wide world that you do something, it comes back. And also, you mentioned the whole piece about, okay, so if you don't want to be bothered with the US, then, you have that option of wanting to separate or to separate. But I'm telling you something, there is a lot of advantage in having that blue passport.
Let me tell you.
A lot of advantage. And I mean, to me, that's just like a divorce. And as much as and dysfunctional as the United States is to me at this time, I'm sorry. That's my family.
You better preach, Charlotte. It's that crazy uncle that show up at the cookout.
Listen.
Because you know what? Crazy uncle is strapped if you need him to be. And I say that because depending on where you're going, and I've lived in some interesting places, not long, but I've lived in places where they've had terrorist activity, and that U.S. consulate came looking for me. And I was fine, but I appreciate it. So yes. You just, it's one of those things for some people, mostly, because I get this question a lot, like who really gives up their citizenship? And typically what I have seen in my practice, it's naturalized citizens, people who came to the U.S. and elected to be citizens, and then they don't need it anymore because they're going back to their home country. But for us, even though it's debatable whether or not this is our home, it's our home now. And that protection, like you said, I have a friend that works for the military, and she always says they do a ranking of the most valuable passports and the benefits that they offer, and the U.S. is always like top 3.
In the top, yeah. And then when you and I guess I just think that no matter where you go, people also have a tendency to think that they cannot pay them bills. Like you talking about the state taxes, they like I'm out. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? And it don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And the one thing I think, being an expat myself, that I'm always conscious of is that anything can happen anytime. And at the end of the day, just like I am a permanent resident of Panama, I'm a US citizen, and I have that option too. There could be some stuff pop off in Panama that I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna have to give Panama a timeout. I'm going back home. Right. And just imagine not being able to go back home.
I don't understand it, but I understand, but I don't understand. So I understand. Yeah, like you said, it's a divorce. I don't necessarily want to be divorced from you, but let me separate from you for a while,
Yes.
and
I
it may be
feel
a long
full
term.
with you right
Yeah,
now.
right. But you just never know, and just having that flexibility, and again, just having that protection that you don't even necessarily know is there, to
Yeah.
know that they are going to come for us first. If something goes down, they are coming looking for us, especially if you register when you're outside of the country. They're going to come and look for you, and they're going to make sure that if something like Russia invading the Ukraine, the U.S. military has, and the U.S. government has visibility to a lot of those things. And when things start kicking up, they're going to come and knock on your door and say, you need to pack a bag and you need to meet us over here.
Well, I think that, that also goes back to the point that you were saying you need to report things, and that
Mm-hmm.
this one document is going to alert this organization, this country, that country. Everybody knows is there.
Mm-hmm.
They're just waiting for you to report or not to report it. And
Right.
then they decided, I don't know how they decide, whether it was willful or unwillful. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, we have to be above board. And sometimes being above board, and when you start talking about finances and taxes,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big thing, because people want to hold on to as much of their money as they can.
Right.
But nowadays, and some of these things that you're saying are kind of make me think about living here in Panama, and I don't know if it applies to other countries, but you can't just go to the ATM and pull out $1,000 no more.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You go to, in Panama, used to be, you could switch your money from, you could go to the ATM and take out how much ever money you wanted from your US account, right? To pay whatever you need to pay here in Panama. You could go ahead and then deposit that money. Well, Panama doesn't allow that anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're here and you have a US debit card, you can only take out like $250 at a
Mm-hmm.
time. And for each time you do it, I really don't use ATMs ever, but for people that do, the charge on this side for every $250, I've heard from as little as $5 to up to $6.80. So if you're trying to get 1,000 out, you can get 1,000 out, but you're gonna have to ask for that 250 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
that really adds up. But just trying to make sure that we understand. Then another thing that you said, you mentioned Texas and Florida.
Yes.
Texas and Florida. I think, would you agree that, talking about the government and how they know things and everything, wouldn't you think that if you were going to be an expat,
Mm-hmm.
if there was a state that you wanted to be associated with, wouldn't it be that one that did not require you to pay income tax?
That is true. So here's where this is what I see a couple. So it's not just Texas and Florida. It's Texas, Florida, New Hampshire.
It's
There's 7 of
Arizona.
them. Arizona. I want to say Nevada is
Mm-hmm,
one. There's
mm-hmm.
like 7. I don't deal with them that much, but Texas and Florida I do, just because I'm in Georgia and they right on the side. Um, the problem, what I see, is when you move to Texas or Florida, depending on what your political leanings are, you may lose the power of your vote. And so I've seen people. I have one client. She happens to be a white woman. She was from Montana before she moved overseas. And I keep telling her, you're paying all this tax in Montana. And she says, I don't care. I want my vote. And I cannot vote in Montana unless I am a resident of Montana. I do not care. And we have this conversation every year. We still filing in Montana? Yes, we are, especially this year. I had a whole hour-long conversation with her because she was like, no, we are filing. I don't care how much it costs. I want to pay. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a personal decision.
Yeah.
But yes, you definitely do want to look at a state from a financial perspective only, not talking about the political, from a financial perspective only, you definitely want to look at states where at the very least you can minimize your tax liability, and eliminate it completely would be preferable.
Well, but don't you think also that my, I am definitely not any kind of tax or money expert at all, but I just have a feeling that eventually the US is going to say, where's our money?
Yeah.
Where's the money? Because there are so many people leaving, for so many different reasons. You got, the super wealthy leaving because they think that their taxes are, they're paying too many taxes and not getting a fair share. And then you have Black people living because we don't feel safe, and we want it. You got poor people leaving because they need to take that modest retirement or pension that they have and try to find a place where they can live and have some peace of mind. So if the US just decided we need to figure out where this money is going. Mm-hmm. I just think that they would start to look at people who say they're living in these places that they're not paying taxes on the income. I just think they would be the first places that they would look as far as when they start talking about auditing people. So I always say you got to be careful.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that. The IRS has it's called LB&I, Legal Business and International Division. And the last several years, their main focus has been in just a couple of different areas. One is cryptocurrency, 2 is expat taxation, and 3 is foreign bank account reporting. So, and all 3 of those tend to tie together. So if you have a delinquent, if you have delinquent foreign bank account reporting, it's likely because you have other international things that you are not reporting. And so, or if you are an expat, are you reporting on your foreign bank accounts? If not, again, you're walking yourself right into an audit. Another thing I just want to remind all of us or bring to the forefront, you sign your tax return under penalty of perjury. Even if you're electronically filing and you're not putting an a wet signature on there, you are submitting your tax return under penalty of perjury. And it even says that, like, you are certifying that everything to the best of your knowledge is complete and accurate and so on and so forth. So you saying, I did not do this, you are saying that you lied, so that's how you get that willful violation. The foreign bank account, even though the foreign bank account reporting is separate from the tax return itself, there is a disclosure on Schedule B, which is for interest and dividends. There's a box at the very bottom, Part 3, where it asks, did you have a foreign bank account? If you check no, that's a willful violation. If you say yes, but you don't have, because there's 3 questions. Do you have a foreign bank account? If so, do you have a filing requirement for the foreign bank account disclosure? And if so, what countries? And then do you have distributions from a foreign trust? So if you say yes, you have a foreign bank account, no, you don't have a reporting requirement, and you do, that's a willful violation. And remember, willful is up to 50% of the bank account, 1 to 5 years in federal prison, minimum of a year and a day to 5 years of federal prison time. And federal prison is, for those of you that don't know, you do 100% of your time in federal prison. There is no good behavior. There is no time served. You're going to do that year and you're going to do that day. And what I've seen a lot of people with people recently, the average age, I'll say, of the person that has gotten one of those type of penalties has been 60, going to federal prison for failing to disclose a foreign bank account, plus the penalty.
Yeah. And the other thing that you talk about, your penalty of perjury. I think that some of us also assume that we give our tax preparer the information and it's their responsibility. We pay them good money. You know what I'm saying? To do our taxes. And so I'm paying you this money because I know you're going to get it right. Even when you have a professional tax preparer, the liability still falls on, does it fall on both the tax preparer and the individual signing?
It does. However, this is what a lot of, and I'm going to say people in our community don't necessarily realize. They get them a tax person, okay? And that tax person may or may not have any designation. So I'm a certified public accountant. I have to register both with the Internal Revenue Service to sign tax returns and with the state that issued my license. I have to remain compliant, meaning I have to take a certain amount of education every 3 years. They put it into specific buckets. So I have to have a specific amount of audit knowledge, a specific amount of ethics knowledge. There's only so much I can do on my own. There's a certain amount of hours that I have to take. I have rules and regulations that I have to abide by. I can get hit with what's called a preparer penalty or an accuracy penalty. If I get hit with a prepare penalty or an accuracy penalty, the IRS is keeping their eyes on me, because what are you doing? Did you underreport something too much? Did you overreport something too much? Too many of those violations, they can suspend my ability to practice as a CPA, meaning I can't represent my clients in front of the Internal Revenue Service or the Supreme Court if we have to. I also cannot sign tax returns. I can't conduct my business, period, full stop. An enrolled agent is someone who has the same type of abilities, but they are specifically allowed to speak with the IRS and communicate with the IRS on your behalf. If you have someone that does not have a designation, they have nothing to lose. So there's actually a quarterly report that the IRS will put up that will tell us these preparers are suspended. These preparers have preparer penalties. This person, I mean, they send it out every quarter, and I act like I don't know, I'm not on there, but every quarter I'm like, oh, let me check, make sure it ain't me, because I don't want no problems. I got to feed these kids,
baby.
So, so those are the things. What will happen, and this is what I've seen happen, and this is what I have done myself. If you get hit with a penalty or something, the very first thing I'm doing is going to my notes. Did I ask you the question? Did you tell me the truth? Because if I didn't ask the question, then I'm liable. If you didn't tell me the truth, now you're liable. And I've seen that happen before, where clients have lied and said, oh, I don't have any foreign bank account. And then the Department of Treasury comes back and says, well, we've got this foreign bank account you didn't disclose. First thing I'm doing is going to my notes. If I can show you the email that you sent me, or if I can have documentation of a conversation, then it's on you now, because I asked the question and you didn't tell me the truth. And so I'm protected, but you're not.
So what would you say? Okay, so you're an international. You have an international designation.
So no, I have a U.S. designation.
You have a U.S. designation. Mm-hmm. U.S. designation, and you said something. You said enrolled agent. Mm-hmm. So an enrolled agent is not a CPA.
Correct.
But it is a tax preparer who is properly identified in the IRS.
Correct.
Okay. So when it comes to individuals like myself and mm-hmm. others living in international spaces, which is so common now with us, mm-hmm. what would you say the main benefits would be of having you as opposed to having just a regular U.S. CPA or tax accountant?
So I would say, for me specifically, I've been doing this for a very long time. I work with a lot of different countries, a lot of different country combinations, and I have an extensive network. So I started in global firms. There are times where I need someone in, Isle of Man to help me with a question. And I can reach out and say, hey, I used to work for XYZ organization. Can you answer this question for me? You do the same thing. You might get a $5,000 bill or a $2,000 bill. I can get a quick question answered because I have that network. I have that affiliation. Hey, I know so-and-so, can I just ask you a quick question? And I can get that question answered where you cannot. I also try to work with as many local preparers as I can in countries where my clients happen to be. So that's actually something. I have a staff person working on that now. And I had her go back through the history of everyone that I've ever worked with since 2015, categorize where they are. And I need to confirm that I have people in those spaces. If not, I need to make sure that I get good people in those spaces so that when you come to me and say, I'm moving to Algeria, I got somebody for you that can help you on the ground. I've got somebody for you in Panama, in Malaysia, in Portugal, in Spain, in Mexico, wherever you're going, I've got somebody there. I've got somebody that can help you. A lot of tax preparers stay in their niche. And this is my niche, obviously. But the Internal Revenue Code, what a lot of people don't understand, it's about the size of, for those of us that are older, it's about the size of 2 phone books, like yellow page phone books. That's the Internal Revenue Code. There are 6 phone books that interpret what are in those 2 phone books, okay? Wow. What I do falls within probably 200-300 pages of those phone books, not to mention the income tax treaties that apply. So the U.S. has income tax treaties with about 60 different countries. Each of those tax treaty that is available on the IRS's website. But reading that treaty, you need to understand what you're looking for, and you need to understand how to apply the treaty. I had a client call me today who was trying to apply a treaty. I said, this is a tax professional. Mm-hmm. She's like, I said, that doesn't apply. What you're trying to do doesn't apply in this particular situation. So just even understanding what you're looking at, you need somebody with that expertise. Now, if you ask me how to set up an S corp or how to do a 1031 exchange, I'm not the person for you. I can help you with that by finding you someone that can. But and that's another thing that I do. You don't have to. Sometimes relationships with tax preparers are very intimate, and you don't necessarily want to give that up. And I mean, I have a lot of clients where let me help your tax professional maybe for the first 2-3 years that you move. Let me just be in the background to help them with those pieces of your return that relate to the international piece, and then they can do all of the rest of the stuff. So you don't have to break up with your tax professional. I prefer that you not, and I work with your tax professional to get them up to speed versus you moving all of that information to me because you have that historical relationship with your previous provider.
Oh, really? I think that
Mm-hmm.
would be surprising
Mm-hmm.
for some people. So when you take on a new client, you would rather come in as the international expert and let them keep their U.S. Tax preparer?
If they want to, because some preparers are like, I don't want anything to do with this, and they'll just they because it's just so it's literally foreign to them, and some preparers will just say no, I cannot. You need to go someplace else. In those cases, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna turn you down if I can help. But it's to me, there's about I think my rough estimate is there's about 20 million U.S. people living overseas. The IRS is saying 9, but 9 is based on the people that have foreign addresses on their tax return. There's about 20 based on what just international movements. There's probably about 20 million. I can't do 20 million tax returns a year,
Yeah.
nor do I have the desire. But what I can do is educate 100,000 tax preparers on how to do this kind of work. Like I would rather do that, and then they can get to the 20 million than try to do 20 million myself. That's not going to happen.
I hear you. That's that's collaboration.
Yes.
That's synergistic relationships, and I'm all about that. I just learned something. I would not have expected that. But I was on a call one day, and because I have a corporation in US and I have a corporation in Panama, and they deal with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, what have I gotten into? I had a Zoom call. I had like 4 professionals from,
Mm-hmm.
Panama and the US trying to help me, and help us all together understand what is the best way to set this up, that I'm not going to be paying taxes in 2 places and everything like that. But I'm that different kind of person because, I was saying when the recommendation came up that I would pay Panama this little teeny bit of taxes, I said, you know what? I owe Panama.
Yeah.
I owe Panama. I don't have no problem whatsoever. I don't have a problem paying taxes. I don't. As particularly in this case, Panama has been extraordinarily generous to me. The opportunities that I've had here are just absolutely mind blowing. I got an aunt that's 80 something years old, and she say, "You blow my mind." That's what she always told me. I love it when she says that. But just being able um to make it right, make it make sense, make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. It's involving the different professionals and having them work together synergistically has taken that a lot of load off my mind.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of load off my mind. And when you create relationships, sometimes you don't want to leave those relationships,
Right.
and so sometimes it's like supplemental. Um, it's like when I used to file taxes for myself. When I went into a different tax bracket, or I went into some things that were different than things that I understood, I would take it to a tax preparer, and then I would follow their work the next year. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? That's what I would.
Yes.
I would follow their work the next year. So I kind of get that. But you talked about preparers.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to, you helping individuals and businesses, you also help other preparers. Tell us about that.
Yes. So this is really my passion. I first and foremost, I don't like seeing people go to prison, especially for things like this. So getting them into compliance So, and just, I haven't mentioned this, but I do want to. If you've been living outside of the country and you haven't been filing, the IRS has streamlined procedures to get you into compliance. So, depending on how long you've lived outside of the country, you can file either fresh returns or amended returns, and delinquent foreign bank account filings to get you into compliance. So, if you are sitting here having a heart attack and you're wondering about it, there's a way to get you into compliance. Um, I enjoy now that I enjoy a good streamlined filing because I love bringing people into compliance and protecting them from their situation. But
Can you break that down a little bit? Streamlined filing.
so there's two different filings: streamlined domestic and streamlined offshore. The streamlined offshore, you have to have lived outside of the country for 330 out of any 300 or 365 days during the three most recently delinquent tax years. So we are in 2024, meaning we're filing for 2023. Let's say you haven't filed for 2023. So you would file 2023, 2022, 2021, and then 6 years of delinquent foreign bank account reportings, which is 23, 2, 1, 2019, and 18. And you would just file everything and come into compliance. Typically, the IRS doesn't respond unless they have questions. And then you just file on time going forward. Streamlined domestic is different. So that's for people who they do not meet that 330-day requirement to have lived outside the United States. In those cases, you have to file amended returns. You can't file fresh returns. Still for the same 3 years, and you still file delinquent foreign bank accounts. The issue with that is there's a 5% penalty on top of whatever taxes you may owe for those 3 years for any undisclosed financial reporting. So they look at those 6 years of foreign bank accounts, they look at your maximum values, and then you pay a 5% penalty on top of that.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this because a majority of the people who are within my group, we're 60. We're 60. Yeah. You know, this is not what we need, y'all. In our retirement years, you know, we have worked too hard to get to this place to go to jail. Okay, or to, you know, live in fear of the IRS. I don't fear much, but I don't fool with the IRS. I don't want to be in no relationship with the IRS. I don't ever want mail from the IRS, ever, ever. I never want to see anything in my mailbox from the IRS, period. So I work very hard to make sure that the only relationship that me and the IRS have is when I file, that every year when I file, that's it. That's the only time we talking. And when you give me a refund or I give you one, you know, that's it. I don't want to keep talking to you. I don't want to get no letters from you. I can't fool with the IRS. It's too powerful.
Right.
The IRS and student loans. You ain't trying to fool with them. Okay. Right. You are not. Okay. So we got to get ready to go. But I told y'all this is always good. So tell me, do you have any events that are coming up where do you train other preparers, or tell us about that?
Yes, I train other preparers in something that I've created called the intensive. It's the HGTE intensive. It's a 3-day boot camp where you learn just about everything you need to do to prepare international tax returns. It's typically very small. It's no more than 30 people at a time. There's an in-person and there's a virtual option. The next one is in September, which will be virtual. Then there's an in-person in November. I have them every few months. And it really is helpful. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from the people that have been through the program. Most of them have been able to go home at the very least and increase their prices because their knowledge has expanded, their confidence has expanded. And that's the whole point, is not necessarily I keep telling them, we're not Walmart, we're not the low price leader. We are providing a valuable service, and it's not a service that a lot of tax preparers have. At the same time, we don't want to be fleecing clients. We also want to make sure that we're getting paid for the value that we provide. So the intensive is something that I would recommend. It's something I developed because there's just not a whole lot of places for preparers to learn this, and there's definitely not a way to learn it in this type of environment. And you're also developing a community. You're around other people that are doing the same kind of work as you. You know, a lot of them exchange contact information, and then, you know, now you've got people that you can ask questions with outside of me. And then there's something else that I wanted to mention that I provide. This is for taxpayers that are interested, especially in the specifics as it relates to states. I have a book out, the 2023 Expatriate Tax Guide, and it talks about the requirements for every single state in the United States that has an income tax. And it talks about what their requirements are and what things you need to be aware of. There are certain things you can do at the federal level, like take foreign tax credits. You can take treaty positions. There's also something called the foreign earned income exclusion that will help minimize the double taxation that you are going to get as a result of living overseas. Many states do not honor those things. So if you're in California and you took a huge foreign tax credit, or you took exclusions on your return or treaty positions, you go to file that California return, all of that goes away, and your tax liability is substantially higher at the state level than it would have been at the federal level. So if you are looking to relocate prior to moving, I would recommend it. Or if you just want to understand how stringent your state is going to be in these areas, then I would recommend it as well.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I just think that this is just preparing us. This is just like, when we getting back to keeping things to yourself, and what goes on in the house stays in the house. We are having a conversation that anyone who wants this information can be privy to. And I'm telling you, when you're moving into international spaces, you need as much concrete, detailed information as possible, because all we know is what we know. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to depend on other people. And when you get to be 60, learning new things, it's like, wow, I mean, all these things that that happen as an expat that you're just learning. I think in a lot of ways it's good because it keeps our minds fresh. But I just think that we need to protect ourselves. And that's why I'm so happy to have had you on the show. Katrina, I'm so serious. I'm so glad that we were able to connect. And when you talk about the HGTE intensive,
yes,
can people find that on HaynesHelp.com?
Yes, it's on the homepage. That and the book, there are links to both on the homepage of my website. So yes, if you're interested, HaynesHelp.com. You'll see me talking about it. There's a video of me talking about it. So feel free to check that out. And there's other things there. There's a free webinar on cryptocurrency for expats. So if you're interested in that, then you can go to that. I've got other webinars on different topics and a lot of different things. So if you're interested, if you're like me, and you like to learn about this stuff, then go there. If not, you can also go to my website and book a consultation. If you have specific questions that you need answers to, then you can put some time on my calendar to talk as well.
I'm so thrilled about that. Thank you so much for being on. And just before we leave, do you have like any, last minute departing information? You already told us how we could get in touch with you, but if you have like one last piece of advice for expats living abroad?
Yes, I would say don't let taxes terrify you. You want to be in compliance, but live your life. Just make sure that you have people involved so that they can help you guide those decisions. It's always easier to plan than to react. So, but don't let the fact that you need to plan hinder you from reaching out and getting somebody involved. Live your life and let us handle the taxes.
Plan rather than react is easier.
Yeah.
So listen, thank you so much for being on the show, and I will be talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And there you have it. I told y'all that was going to be good. Listen, I love doing this. I love bringing information to our community, but this one really, 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 it really resonates with me because of all of the business that I've, ended up doing internationally and in the United States, because I like when she said, don't let it paralyze you. It's easier to plan than it is to react. I think if we don't take anything else away, that when it comes to this whole transition and moving to another country, plan. It's easier to plan and be proactive than to have to react to something that has already gone wrong, okay? So definitely, like I say, you always want to do your research. You always, if you come into Panama, want to consider the Black Expats in Panama Cultural Relocation Tour, because we will get you right together. So much information in one place. So many individuals like Katrina that we have to provide that real information. forget what you heard, forget about people's opinions about things. Make sure that you are talking to professionals that are educated and experienced in the information that you need. I'm going to leave you with this. We have a B2B, BEIP B2B network. And our network, our business to business network is on fire, baby. We meet every second Wednesday. Right now, we're meeting at the 54 East Hotel restaurant at the Global Hotel over in the El Barrio section of Panama City. And our meeting starts at 6:30 and typically goes to about 8:30. But the connections, y'all, is about collaboration versus competition. And it is also about creating synergistic relationships. And when people come back and testify, baby, that, you know, they've done business with other black pats, other black expats, or other, Panamanians that are living here because they were able to connect at this B2B. It is on fire. Let me tell you this one last thing. Save the date. On November 15th, we will have our very first How to Win at Business in Panama forum. And it's going to be held at the Daiquiri 23 Event Center. Okay. And so more information will be coming about that. I'll make sure that I put the graphic up on the video part of this interview. And that's it. You know, lots of other things going on, but I ain't got time now. Okay. So follow me everywhere. Black Expats in Panama. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're definitely doing the thing on Facebook. And then always you could just, be in touch with our website at blackexpatsinpanama.net. We have tried to consolidate the website so that all of our tours and events and information, links to our newsletter, if you haven't become a subscriber yet to get our newsletter, all of that is in one place for you, trying to create that one-stop shopping thing for you. I'm going to go ahead and Katrina liked anything Earth, Wind, and Fire. She said for me to pick something for her. So I don't know. I think Keep Your Head to the Sky was one of my favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire songs. And I had so many. So I'm going to go with Keep Your Head to the Sky. And if, you're listening to the radio, that's what's going to play next. Listen, give a shout out to my main man, Daryl Spears, Elite Conversation Podcast Media, for putting this all together for me for the radio show. Shout out and giving my love to Devin and Riley for creating Black Seed Radio and allowing us to put our voices in the world forever. Always giving love to my grandbabies, Zola and Ruby. This your Nana signing off. So listen, this is Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of little old Glassboro, New Jersey, right here, baby, on blacksedradio.com. I will see y'all next time. Until then, I love you. I love you. I love you. And there's just nothing that you can do about it. Ciao. Peace.